Welcome to Weasel Gaming, and today we're going to be looking at the Leaf Charge theme deck. We're going to be looking specifically at the tactics for how best to play this deck. This is a Sun and Moon Celestial Storm Leaf Charge theme deck. Features Sceptile as the key Pokemon there that this deck is focused around. So first off, we want to take a look at our energy. This deck, being a Sun and Moon deck, does have 20 energy. Kind of an interesting blend this time. There is 9 lightning, and then there's 11 grass. So kind of split between the two almost evenly. A little bit more grass than lightning. And we'll pop right into things here, and we'll look at our starters. And this deck has got some decent options for starters. Furfrou is a pretty good starter. Only 90 health, is 1 attack, return, only does 20 damage. But it does allow you to draw cards until you have 5 cards in your hand. So early on, as long as you can play the things in your hand out, get those Pokemon onto your bench, get the energy out of your hand and onto your Pokemon, hopefully you'll be less than 5 cards. This allows you to get back up to 5 cards every single round. Another option for starters is Dunsparce, another colorless with 50 health. The Sudden Flash ability does allow you a 50-50 chance at Paralyzed, but that's not something I would depend on or really use. Strike and Run is really the key player here. Allows you to search your deck for up to 3 basic Pokemon, put them onto your bench, then shuffle your deck. If you put any Pokemon onto your bench this way, you may switch this Pokemon with one of those benched Pokemon. So this is a good way to get something else out there. So you start with Dunsparce, you don't really have anything else great. You can switch Dunsparce after you use his ability with someone else on your bench. Probably someone you just picked out of your deck, such as a Furfrou. Or perhaps someone else, depending on who you're playing against. But there's lots of good options here. Oranguru is another good option. If you have Manectric or Electrike, pulling the other one out. I guess if you have Manectric, pulling Electrike out is a pretty good option. So there are some ways to use Dunsparce here to really get things rolling early on. Now, if you're second player, Manectric is an interesting card to use. Manectric has 110 health, is a lightning type, has an ability called Electric Start, which is where this comes into play. If you are the second player and this Pokemon is in your hand when you're setting up to play, you may put it face down as your active Pokemon on the bench. So you get to skip the evolutionary phase of this. And Manectric is not a bad starting Pokemon. Double Charge only costs 1 energy, does 40 damage, which isn't much, but early on in a game, 40 damage against their basic Pokemons, their starter Pokemons, is going to be decent and could be knocking people out in 1 or 2 hits. It also allows you to attach up to 2 basic energy cards from your hand to one of your bench Pokemon. So it's a great way to use excess energy from your hand to start stocking up and building up those other Pokemon, making this a real great starter. Now, if you're up against a fighting deck, then another great starter is Snover. 80 health, he's a grass type, has an ability called Ice Shard. 2 energy, it does 20 damage, plus if your opponent is a fighting Pokemon, this attack does 40 more. So that's 60 damage if you're going up against a fighting type deck. Now what's even better is most fighting cards are weak to grass. That tends to be the main weakness. So Snover then can be doing 120 damage right out of the gates early in the game. So if you're going against a fighting deck, Snover is a real fun card to keep around because he kind of sneaks up. People aren't expecting him to be as good as he is. So now we're going to look at defense. We do have a little bit of defense in this deck. We already talked about Dunsparce and their 50-50 chance of getting a paralyzation. Another defender you have is Abomasnow. Now, his Hypno Hammer does 80 damage and puts the active Pokemon to sleep. So you got a 50-50 chance to kind of knock things down. Along those lines of defense, we do have Sceptile. Sceptile has an ability called Power of Nature. Prevent all damage done to your Pokemon that have any grass energy attached to them by attacks from your opponent's Ultra Beasts. Now, I mention that because it is a defensive ability. It does protect you from Ultra Beasts. But there aren't a lot of theme decks with Ultra Beasts. There's only one that I can think of off the top of my head. And it does get played once in a while, but the Ultra Beast isn't even the most deadly part of that deck. So whether or not that ability will ever come into play for you is really up in the air. But it's there. You have it in case you need it. So now we're going to start talking about our power hitters. And we actually have a few in this deck. First up is Oranguru. 120 health, colorless type. Has a psychic attack. For 3 energy, you do 60 damage. Plus, this attack does 20 more damage times the amount of energy attached to your opponent's active Pokemon. So this is a good way to hit hard against big threats. Someone that's sitting out there with 4 energy, against this guy, you're going to do 140 damage to him. If you're going against something that's really big that has 5 energy, you're going to do 160 damage. So Oranguru should be kind of held back for those big targets with high retreat costs. If you're going up against someone like a Sceptile that only has a 1 retreat cost, well, then you're only going to do 80 damage, which isn't going to be very impressive. So Oranguru is a solid attacker in the right situations. His ability, however, is probably the more important part. Once during your turn, you may draw cards until you have 3 cards in your hand. So, there's those times mid-game, late game where you used all the cards in your hand and you're not pulling anything else that'll help you draw or anything. Oranguru makes sure that you have at least a couple cards to go. So keeping Oranguru around just for that is handy. Up next, we're going to talk about Snover and Abomasnow. We've already talked about them a little bit, but again, Snover is a grass type, has that Ice Shard attack that does 20 damage or 60 against fighting. And remember, a lot of fighting decks are weak against grass, so he could do even more damage. Abomasnow is 130 health, grass type. Hypno Hammer does 80 damage. For 4 energy, that's really on the weak side. You're really depending on that sleep to actually work, and hopefully they don't wake back up. Because 4 energy for 80 damage is really on the weak side. There's a lot of Pokemon out there that do 120 damage for 3 or 4 energy. So this guy's kind of behind the game here in that area. That ability, though, is nice. Blessings of the Frost. When you play this Pokemon from your hand to evolve one of your Pokemon, you may attach a grass energy from your discard pile to one of your Pokemon. So that helps recover lost energy. Next up for our heavy hitters is Chinchou and Lantern. Chinchou isn't much. Spark can do 10 damage and 10 damage to some benched Pokemon. Good way to finish off someone that maybe they retreated and only have 10 health left. Lantern is your big heavy hitter here, though. 110 health, electric type, lightning type. Ability is really nice. Energy grounding. When one of your Pokemon is knocked out by damage from an opponent's attack, you may move a basic energy from that Pokemon to this Pokemon. So you can recover energy without even going to the discard pile to power up Lantern. And that's pretty important because Lantern does need and use a lot of energy. 3 energy Lightning Strike does 70 damage, which is okay. But you can discard all of the electric energy from this Pokemon. And if you do, this attack does 70 more damage, allowing you to do 140 damage, which is very heavy hitting. So you go out there, you use Lightning Strike, you burn those 2 energy. At that point, it may be time to retreat, Lantern or use a switch to get them back off the front line. Let someone else go out there, and when they get knocked out, some of that energy transfers back to Lantern. You can bring Lantern out to do another big heavy hit later. Next up, we have our featured Pokemon. We'll look at the early evolutions first. Trico does not have anything all that special. Grovyle, also nothing all that special. Possible 60 damage for 1 energy isn't bad. But our big winner here is Sceptile. 140 health, grass type. Has a 1 energy powerful storm. So very efficient attack here. And that attack does 20 damage times the amount of energy attached to all of your Pokemon. So you add up all of the energy attached to all of your Pokemon, including Sceptile, and take that times 20 for your damage. If you happen to have 5 energy out there altogether, that's 100 damage. If you happen to have 10 energy out there altogether, then you're going to do 200 damage. So it's very important that you use Sceptile at the right time. You don't want to throw him out there early when you don't have a lot of energy out there. You want to get as much energy as you can down. And he really blends well with some of these other players, such as Lantern's ability to recover energy, Abomasnow's Blessing of the Frost to get energy back out of discard. You want to keep those energy numbers high across the board so that Sceptile can do really high damage. Now that's it for our heavy hitters, but I do still need to talk about the last pair here. Now we already talked about Manectric, and Manectric is really good as a starter. After that, though, kind of loses some of the luster. Electrike really has nothing going for him. However, Manectric's double charge attack is kind of interesting, again, because of the way it works with Sceptile. Double charge allows you to do, for 1 energy, hit for 40 damage, and then you may attach 2 basic energy cards from your hand to one of your benched Pokemon. So again, that's a way to get some energy down on the bench to make sure Sceptile can do more damage. So that's it for our Pokemon. Now we're going to take a look at all of our supporters and see what kind of options we have there. So first we'll talk about drawing. And for draws, we do have 2 Hows. How allows you to draw 3 cards. We do have a Lily. Lily allows you to draw until you have 6 cards in your hand, or if it's your first turn, draw until you have 8 cards in your hand. Both can be useful, especially when you're running low on cards. Next up, we do have 2 Copycats, which is great when your opponent has a big hand and you're running low or just don't have anything that's all that useful. And you do have 2 Professor Kukuis. Kukui allows you to draw 2 cards and gives you a bonus damage of 20. So that's not too bad either. We then have Tate and Lisa. Allows you to choose one of the 2 options. You can either shuffle your hand into your deck, then draw 5 cards, or switch your active Pokemon with one of your bench Pokemon. So it's a switch or a cycle card where you shuffle your hand back into your deck and draw new cards. Either way, it can be very useful. That's it for our draws, except for, of course, Pokemon. Don't want to forget that you do have Furfrou, who can be used to draw cards if you need to. And you also have Oranguru, who can also be used to draw cards when you're running low on your hand. He'll always draw you up to 3 cards if you have him on the bench or the active spot. For pulling Pokemon, we have a lot of options in this deck. We do have 2 Nest Balls, which allows you to pull basic Pokemon out. And that allows you to get set up for your higher evolution cards. There really isn't a lot of basic Pokemons that are heavy hitters that you want to be bringing out to fight for you. They're more just to build your other Pokemon. Ultra Ball allows you to discard 2 cards from your hand, and if you do, you get to search your deck for any Pokemon, put that into your hand. So that's a great way to finish off evolutionary changes. Timer Ball is another evolution-based one. You flip 2 coins for each heads. You get to pull a evolutionary card out of your deck. So again, another way to get that Abomasnow or that Sceptile you need to finish off your evolutionary lines. And we have Rescue Stretcher, which allows you to put a single Pokemon from the discard pile into your hand, or shuffle 3 Pokemon from your discard pile into your draw pile. So very tactical use here. If you've lost an Abomasnow, but you have another Snover on the deck, or you have another Grovyle Trico on the deck and you lost your one Sceptile, you can use this Rescue Stretcher to pull that one back out of the discard pile and use them right away. Also, don't forget that you do have Dunsparce, the Strike and Run, which can be used to pull some basic Pokemon. So you have a lot of ways to get basic Pokemon, a couple ways to get those evolutions, so hopefully you can start getting things set up. Next, we'll talk about energy. Now, this is an interesting deck when it comes to energy. You do need a lot of energy to get things rolling. Abomasnow takes a lot of energy to use. Lantern is going to discard a lot of energy to do big attacks. However, Sceptile only needs 1 energy on Sceptile, but needs a lot of energy on the rest of your bench. So Lady comes in handy, allows you to search your deck for up to 4 basic energy, reveal them and place them into your hand, then shuffle your deck. That combined with Manectric's ability, double charge attack, allows you to then place a lot of that energy down. With Manectric out there in the active spot, Lady allows you to pull 4 basic energy. You can place 1 energy per turn. Manectric would allow you to place 2 more energy. So that's always nice. Lantern is really good at preserving that energy. So if you lose someone out there, Lantern can just absorb that energy. If you're not even using Lantern for attacks, they can just sit there and keep absorbing that energy to power up Sceptile. You also have Experience Share, which is another way to save energy from going to discard. You put this item on one of your Pokemon, and when your active Pokemon is knocked out by damage, then you may move 1 basic energy from that Pokemon to the Pokemon that this card is attached to. So it's a great way, again, to conserve that energy on your bench so that Sceptile can do more damage. Don't forget, for energy manipulation, you also have Abomasnow, who can pull energy from the discard. And of course, I can't stop talking about Manectric and his ability to place extra energy onto your bench Pokemon. So now it's time for manipulations. And for that, we have Guzma. Allows you to switch your opponent's benched Pokemon with their active Pokemon. If you do, you have to switch your active Pokemon with one of your bench Pokemon. So it's like the escape rope, except you have control over who's getting switched out. You also have a switch for yourself. So you do have some cards there. Don't forget, you also have Tate and Lisa, who also work as a switch card. Dunsparce can do a Paralyze with a 50-50 chance. Abomasnow does have that sleep attack. But that's about it for when it comes to manipulation. So there is a little bit in here. So with that, that's all of our cards. That's all of our Pokemon and our supporter cards. It's time to look at our stats. For this deck, power is a little bit low. We're sitting power at a 2. For attackers, we have Oranguro, who's completely dependent on your opponent's active Pokemon's retreat cost. Or no, not retreat cost, but his energy. Then we have Sceptile, who's completely dependent on you having a lot of energy built up across your deck. So if you're getting Pokemon knocked out quickly, you're not going to be able to build that energy up. Sceptile is going to be really weak. And then you have Abomasnow, who only does 80 damage. So Your big hitters are very situational and really rely on the right play of cards. So power is limited somewhat, which is why it's at a 2. Now you do have the potential to hit really hard with this deck, but it takes the right setup. Speed is a 2, and speed is how fast can we get those Pokemon out there and doing damage. Again, this is a problem. Oranguru needs 3 energy and bases that attack based on the opponent's active Pokemon's energy. Early on, they're not going to have a lot of high energy out there, so Oranguru is going to be kind of handicapped there. Abomasnow is going to take an evolution and 4 energy to get powered up. Sceptile takes 2 evolutions, is a very efficient card with only a 1 energy attack, but your bigger problem here is that you're going to need a lot of energy down on the board. If you're putting Sceptile out there when you only have 3 energy, you only have a 60 damage attack, which isn't much to talk about. So you really have to watch that here. It does take you a little bit to get this deck built up and rolling. As far as agility, it's at a 3. We have fairly good agility here to adapt to different situations with our different Pokeballs, a considerable amount of draws. We have a good way to kind of shift our hand, shift our lineup as needed. Energy efficiency is at a 4. We have a lot of ways to pull energy, to conserve energy, and there's no real cards that are discarding any energy here. So other than Lantern, who does discard due to their heavy hits. But otherwise, you've got a lot of cards that are pretty cheap or are going to be conserving that energy, or are going to be pulling it from the discard. So energy efficiency here is typically not a problem. As far as complexity goes, it's a relatively complex deck. And that's because you're trying to do a lot of different things at one time. You have quite a few Pokemon that have abilities. Lantern, Abomasnow, Oranguru, Sceptile. So you can quickly fill your bench with a lot of these Pokemon, and you got to keep track of all those different abilities. On top of that, the attacks that your different Pokemon do are going to depend greatly on the situation. Sceptile depends on how much energy you have across your Pokemon. Oranguru depends on how much energy the opponent has. And you have to be conserving energy through Lantern, through your EXP share. You have to be using Manectric to play more energy. It can be a complex deck because you got a lot of moving parts and you got to remember a lot of different things going on at the same time. Resiliency is only at a 2. We have a few defensive things, but they're mostly chance defense. There's not a lot of strong defense, and there's not a lot of high hit point Pokemon out here either. So resilience is sitting at a 2. For type ability, we're sitting at a 4. This deck does really well in managing different types. The reason this is because of the wide spread of cards. Oranguru is a colorless attacker. Abomasnow is a grass type attacker. Sceptile's grass type. Lantern is lightning type. So what you're weak to is very diverse, but that also means since you have so many attackers in so many different areas, you can really adapt well. If someone's bringing a fire deck to you, then you know Abomasnow and Sceptile aren't going to be your main damage dealers, but you still have Lantern and Oranguru. If you're going against a fighting deck, well then you don't want to be using Oranguru as a damage dealer. Plus that opens up Snover to do some big damage hits. So you have to watch out for fire decks and fighting decks, but you also have an answer to those fighting decks, and you have Pokemon that you can still use against those fire decks. So because of that, you have a really good chance to be able to counter whatever your opponent is throwing at you. And you don't have to worry too much about your weakness because you're going to have some other attacker you can pull in. For manipulation, we do have a little bit of manipulation. With Guzma, with Abomasnow, with Dunsparce, we do have some things that we can do to try to trip up the opponents and force them to play different ways. So manipulation is sitting at a 2. With that, I hope you feel a little more comfortable with Leaf Charge theme deck. It is an interesting deck. It's not your heaviest hitter grass deck out there. but it can be a decent deck. Wouldn't be my first choice out there, but if you have it in the lineup and you need some electric damage or some grass damage or something like that, it's not a bad deck to play. You just have to know what you're doing and what you're looking for. So with that, don't forget to like and subscribe, and we'll see you next time.